In the second year after being forcibly taken by Prince Xun, I gave birth to a child. Everyone thought I had given up. No longer being as unruly as before, always thinking about escape. But in the unseen darkness, I taught that child about equality, taught her about freedom and respect. On the fourth day after I took her away from Prince Xun's mansion, her guards followed the clues she left behind and found us. The child I gave birth to tilted her head in slight confusion and asked, "Mother, does father not treat you well? Why do you want to leave?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. On that cold and windy night, when I carried Cece to the dock, the boat was still moored at the shore. Cece nestled in my arms, her clear eyes quietly watching me. She was an obedient child even while following me from the capital. Hiding our tracks and traveling day after day, she never complained once. I gave her a warm smile. "Cece, once we're on the boat, no one will be able to find us. I'll take you somewhere safe to live, everything will be all right." Cece didn't speak, just played with her fingers. A barely audible sneer came with the night wind. I froze in place as the boat's shadow suddenly transformed into a towering monster, leaning forward to swallow people whole. Xun walked off the boat, his followers quickly blocking all escape routes. In the firelight, Xun wore dark robes and a jade crown, his eyes dark like a demon from the underworld. I held Cece protectively in my arms, my hand hidden in my sleeve trembling uncontrollably. I had planned this escape for 9 whole months, how could we be found in just 4 days? All strength seemed to drain from my body as I closed my eyes in despair. "Xun, did you have people secretly watching me the whole time? Did it please you greatly to watch me struggle desperately, thinking I was about to escape? Canary, you always think the worst of me." Xun sighed softly, a cruel glint flashing in his narrow eyes. Before I could grasp the meaning in his words, I felt the child in my arms struggling to get down. After steadying herself, Cece said to me in her childish voice, "Don't be angry with father anymore." I sent messages to the guards to come find us. I stared blankly at this child I had poured my heart into raising. She lifted her head, her expression slightly confused. "Mother, does father not treat you well? Why do you want to leave?" Perhaps the torment of previous years had already dried all my tears. Now I could only stand there wooden-faced, unable to react. Cece ran to Xun, smiling sweetly as if seeking praise. The sound of river waves hitting the shore continued endlessly as I stood there, feeling only coldness with each breath. Through the night curtain, a trace of mockery flashed across Sun's gaze at me. He had always been like this, watching my struggles like a cat toying with a mouse. In the carriage back to Prince Xun's mansion, there were only Xun and me. Sun's hand pressed down on my shoulder, forcing me to kneel at his feet. My face pressed against the hem of his clothes, my vision blurred. I could only hear his malicious, hoarse voice. "Admit your mistake now, and I will pretend these past few days never happened." Sun's fingers slid into my hair, stroking it gently. My head buzzed as I suppressed the urge to vomit. And after finding the dagger in my sleeve, I suddenly stabbed it toward Sun's thigh. The dagger barely pierced the skin. In the next instant, Sun gripped my wrist amid excruciating pain. The bloodied blade sank into the carriage's carpet without a sound. Sun looked down at me, anger flashing in his eyes. He sighed, "Canary, why can't you learn to behave? When I first arrived in this ancient world, it was to find someone. My childhood friend Chu Langze disappeared in a time-space experiment accident. According to regulations, no one was allowed to conduct time travel privately. So he was abandoned by the Time Bureau. But I couldn't abandon him. When I came to this backward ancient world with reckless courage, I thought I could quickly find Chu Langze and bring him home. But I didn't expect that I would also be trapped here. When I first arrived in this world, the thing I regretted most was pulling the dying Sun out of the river. At that time, I made money by writing letters and copying books for people in the city. Half for treating Sun's injuries, half for living expenses. Su Wenba complained every day about throwing out this troublesome man, who was covered in arrow wounds and ate too much. Su Wenba was the first person I met in this world. When I walked out of the light portal projected by the time travel machine migration, he was digging for wild vegetables in the wilderness. The thin and sickly young man was first scared stiff. But after recovering, he came over with sparkling eyes calling me fairy. Later he called me sister. Su Wenba was an orphan. And I had no relatives here, so we relied on each other in Green Pear Village. After Yan Sun woke up, he claimed that he was secretly harmed by his brother who was fighting for inheritance, which was why he fell into the water. He asked us not to rush to report to officials or look for his family. While recovering, he spoke little, slept a lot, and rarely showed expression on his paper-white face. I asked the village carpenter to make a small cart, and on nice days I would push Yan Sun to the courtyard to get some sun. Under the fence, I used a twig to calculate on the ground whether this month's earnings would be enough for next month's expenses, and hopefully save some money for finding Chu Langze. In the bright sunlight, Yan Sun's gaze fell on my face. Not recognizing the meaning behind it, I casually picked a pear from the courtyard and handed it to Yan Sun. This is a pear from Green Pear Village. It's fragrant and sweet. Eating it will make you feel better, and your wounds will heal faster. I smiled brightly at him. Yan Sun smiled back. The gratitude and enmity in this world are often reversed, like the farmer and the snake. When black-armored guards escorted a carriage into Green Pear Village, heading straight for our small courtyard, I finally learned that Yan Sun was the fourth prince, titled Prince Xun for his military achievements. The so-called brother fighting for inheritance was actually the first prince, known throughout the court for his virtue. The year Yan Sun returned victorious after defeating the barbarians, he had sought the hand of the imperial tutor's daughter. According to rumors, she was the first prince's beloved. The woman in the carriage wore elaborate clothes and carried herself with grace. She stepped down from the carriage using servants' backs as steps, wiping tears with her sleeve, choking. "Thank the gods, your highness is safe and sound, nothing could be better." But Yan Sun didn't even look at her, instead pointing at me leaning on a broom, saying, "This lady saved my life, and I've decided to take her into my household." His wife, Princess Sun's expression froze for a moment. But then she wiped away her tears and a perfect, gentle smile appeared on her face. "Your highness is kind, this is indeed great fortune for a village girl." I quickly waved my hands in refusal. But Su Wenba was already kowtowing in gratitude. Everything happened so abruptly and uncontrollably, I stood there dumbfounded. In that instant, my heart trembled. How naive was I to dare come to this world with only migration? Before transmigrated, the worst thing that could happen was getting test scores below my dream university's requirements, or Chu Langze secretly selling all my equipment and games. But now, the world I was in was a feudal society with clear class distinctions where those in power held absolute control over life and death. As chills swept through my body, I instinctively reached to activate migration that I carried, but found nothing. The young prince among the crowd had indifference in his eyes, his lips curling when he looked at me, like a snake flicking its tongue. Later I persistently asked Yan Sun why he repaid kindness with cruelty. Yan Sun thought for a while, fingers playing with my hair. After a long time, he said carelessly, "Perhaps because, that day when you handed me the pear, the sunlight was just right, and it hurt my eyes." The journey from the dock back to Prince Xun's mansion was very long, as if it took a lifetime. I was bound hand and foot, stuffed into a carriage. Near the city gate, someone came forward to pay respects to Yan Sun. Then that person lifted the carriage curtain, and the daylight poured in, stinging my eyes so much that tears welled up. Su Wenba glanced at the setup inside the carriage and sighed helplessly. "Sister, why do you put yourself through this?" He reached out to wipe away my tears, but I avoided his touch. The young man before me had thick eyebrows and narrow eyes, his childish innocence replaced by an underlying ruthlessness. Everyone in the capital now knew that Su Wenba under Prince Xun, though of humble origins, was a vicious dog who would bite people to death. Seeing my reaction, his expression unchanged, he continued, "Sister, is being His Highness's favored concubine really so unbearable to you?" I squeezed out a word from my throat, "Get lost." Su Wenba stared at me, a flash of coldness passing through his eyes. "In today's world, you can't survive alone, let alone take care of Cece. Sister, do you know how many people starve to death outside the city walls every day? How many people fall into misfortune? I've told you before, even if His Highness keeps you in a cage, it's a golden cage. with fine clothes and food, free from all worries. Isn't that good? I looked at the rope on my hands. My head buzzing, with my remaining sanity stretched taut like a string. My voice was weak but firm. I am a human being, not an animal. I have the right to choose how I live. When I first fell into Yen Sun's hands, I tried every means to escape. Mixing with servants to leave the mansion, crawling through dog holes, jumping into lakes to find underground waterways. But Yen Sun's power was too great, and he always managed to catch me back to his side. The farthest I got was beyond the capital's gate. But I was forced back by Su Wenba's portraits nailed to the city walls. Then I watched as the unharmed Su Wenba knelt at Yen Sun's feet, presenting him with migration. Your Highness, sister suddenly appeared in Green Pear Village with this object. With it gone, she can never leave. Yen Sun caressed that unremarkable gray pearl, smiling ambiguously as he tucked it into his sleeve. Why? I stiffly turned my head to see Su Wenba's calm face. Without migration, I could never return home. Su Wenba rose to leave, and as he passed by, he softly said, I'm sorry, sister, I just don't want to go hungry anymore. From that moment on, I finally realized that my foolishness and trust in others had together woven a prison net, trapping me in this world. The mansion of Prince Xun remained as magnificent as ever with its vermilion gates. Yen Sun confined me in the Ripple Pavilion, forbidding anyone to see me except for the two maids watching over me, including Cece. He was determined to teach me a lesson. He had imprisoned me once before, under even more unbearable circumstances. I was locked in a golden cage like a bird, deprived of freedom and sunlight. Yen Sun even gave me a new name, calling me Canary. It wasn't until I became pregnant with Cece that I was moved to the Ripple Pavilion, becoming just another tamed concubine in Yen Sun's inner court. For 6 years, I lived this life paying mourning respects to his wife, seeing Cece once every 3 days while she was being raised by Princess Xun, and dutifully serving Yen Sun in bed. Only when teaching Cece to read and telling her about things from another time and space could I feel my own existence. But now, even this faint sense of being was stripped away. The maids chatted and giggled in the corridor. In other households, a concubine who tries to escape would be beaten to death. This one is really lucky. It's not like that. I'm not someone's private possession to be controlled. Sunlight filled the room, illuminating the pearl-studded curtains and exquisite makeup boxes, becoming distorted in the reflection of the bronze mirror. I curled up helplessly on the bed, feeling increasingly cold despite it being warm spring. At night, when the lamps went dark, someone started tearing at my clothes, followed by messy kisses. I woke with a start and began struggling frantically. Haven't you come to your senses after all these days? Yen Sun gripped my chin, his breath hot and voice hoarse. Canary, I've been extremely lenient with you, yet you still remain so ungrateful? Before I could respond, he added softly, today is her birthday, don't make me angry again. I remembered last year on Princess Xun's birthday, she had also shut Yen Sun out. To outsiders, they appeared to be childhood sweethearts who respected each other. But in truth, Princess Xun's heart belonged to her former love, the first prince. And she remained indifferent to Yen Sun. Whenever Yen Sun was upset by her, he would come to vent his frustrations on me in bed. A cliché drama of a brother stealing his brother's wife, and I was dragged in as collateral damage. Yen Sun was already aroused, kissing the skin at my collarbone. But I grew increasingly calm. Yen Sun, you're truly laughable. I grabbed his hair, speaking softly. You can't force anyone to give you what you want, no matter what methods you use. The one you love despises you, and I hate you. You should have died in that river. Then none of this would have happened. But it's not too late to die now. I pulled out a long hairpin from under the pillow and, filled with bone-deep hatred, stabbed it into Yen Sun's neck without hesitation. In the instant blood spurted forth, Yen Sun knocked away my hand and tightly gripped my throat. Trying to kill me? His tone suddenly turned icy as he increased the pressure, leaving me barely able to make a sound. Canary, you think you'll be free if I die? I opened my mouth, struggling to draw in the increasingly thin air. Ha, ha. My vision gradually blurred. Am I going to die? But I haven't found Chu Langzhe yet. Even if he's more unfortunate than me, torn apart by this world until only bones remain, I still need to take him home. I shouldn't have made such an irrational choice. I should have pretended to submit, earned Yensun's trust, and planned my next escape. But tonight, I suddenly didn't want to continue like the past few years. Clinging to faint hope while trying hard to play the puppet, pleasing the puppeteer. It's too disgusting. In the final second before consciousness fell into darkness, the hand choking my neck finally loosened. I gasped for air in huge breaths, my eyes misty. Yensun watched me, blood spreading across his neck, making his eyes appear even darker and more sinister, as if examining a pet that dared bare its fangs at its master. The lamps were lit one by one. The wound on Yensun's neck had been treated, wrapped with white bandages. He touched the location of the wound, his voice carrying a hint of regret. You don't even have the strength to kill me. Canary, how will you survive out there? My fingers, stained with dried blood, trembled. Before meeting you, I was living just fine. Yensun curved his lips, as if hearing an amusing joke. I wonder what kind of place could nurture someone like you. Naive, foolish, weak, gullible. Even if you had stayed in Green Pear Village, your dear brother would have sold you sooner or later. At this point, Yensun lowered his gaze, his long lashes hiding the mockery in his eyes. Oh, I forgot, he already sold you to me. Your background, your purpose, everything he knew about you, he told me. Yensun extended his hand, revealing a gray pearl in his palm. I immediately lunged forward, trying to grab it. Yensun stepped aside, letting me fall to the ground. Heh. Yensun chuckled, this thing must be very important to you. When Su Wenba told me you weren't from this world, I thought he was mad. But all these years, no matter how I investigated, I could never trace your identity. It seems he was right, you fell from the heavens, a complete anomaly. That explains all your strange ideas and peculiar behaviors. I looked up at Yensun, stunned and helpless. However, I don't care about any of that. Regardless of your origins or where you came from, your only place now is by my side. Yensun leaned down, pulling me into his embrace, his fingers stroking my back, his voice tender. Even if I die, you must follow me to the grave. I caught the scent of blood. Then, Yensun grabbed my wrist and dragged me out of the room, all the way to the lake outside the Ripple Pavilion. There, before my eyes, he threw migration into the lake. Before I could cry out no, I frantically tried to jump into the lake. Yensun held me firmly in his arms and said, tomorrow, I will order people to fill in this lake. Then, will you give up? In the dim lamplight, cold wind swept across the lake through the long night. I stared at where migration had disappeared, completely drained of strength, my legs weak. Yensun released me, letting me half collapse on the ground. Still haven't come to your senses? You can't go back. In this vast world, I am all you can rely on. Now, I'll give you one last chance to choose. Yensun looked down. As long as you kneel at my feet and admit your wrongs, behaving properly from now on, you can still be Cece's mother, my favored concubine. Then, his voice deepened, almost warning. If you refuse, given your crimes of escape and attempted murder of me, you can only be the lowest slave in the household. One thought leads to life, another to hell. I stared at Yensun's elegant black boots, unstained by even a speck of dust, my eyes stinging from the golden bird embroidery on the shoes. He wanted me to admit my wrongs. But what wrong had I done? I saved him, was forced to bear a child, and had my hopes of returning home destroyed step by step. I had suffered, submitted, struggled, over and over, nothing seemed to make any difference. I let out a soft laugh. Yensun, my only mistake was saving your life. It must have been a nightmare. My eyes were blindfolded, pitch black, not a trace of daylight visible. Beneath me was a rug made of some unknown animal fur. Sinking into it, I could only smell the lingering, irritating fragrance. Click! The sound of the cage being opened. I came to my senses, shrinking back until my spine hit the cold metal. Yensun effortlessly dragged me back by my ankle. Then, he gripped my chin and forced medicine down my throat. With my eyes covered, other senses became exceptionally clear. Every inch of my body was overwhelmed with tingling pain, as if millions of insects were biting me. Gradually, I could no longer hear, smell, or sense anything. Only the effects of the drug remained, swallowing both consciousness and dignity. I groped in the air until I caught a slightly cool hand, then eagerly pressed my cheek against it, whimpering to show submission. The owner of the hand rewarded me with a kiss, prying open my lips to deliver a new pill. Pain was replaced by desire. As skin touched skin, the spreading heat made me tremble uncontrollably. "You're not suffering anymore." The man above me breathed unevenly, his voice full of satisfied desire. "Why are you still crying, Canary?" That strange name seemed to cut through a sliver of my clouded mind. "I'm not Canary." I shook my head, my voice nearly hoarse from panic. "I'm not Canary, that's not my name." I curled up in confusion. My name is, what is my name? How many years had I been in this world? The path ahead was confusing, the path behind pitch black. No freedom to come or go. When did I start forgetting even my own name? Xun unhurriedly pulled me into his arms, his fingers caressing the nape of my neck. He removed my blindfold and in the dim candlelight, forced me to look into his eyes as a smile slowly bloomed in them. "You are Canary, my concubine." Then he got up and left, leaving me to sink into endless darkness. Days and nights blurred together, time lost meaning. Living so long without seeing daylight made me increasingly weary. I slept through most of the time. Eventually, I couldn't even muster energy when Xun gave me medicine. As if my senses had become numb. Xun laughed coldly by my ear. "You think this will make me let you go?" As his words fell into my ears, I just hazily turned my head, the lower half of my face expressionless. But Xun seemed to grow angrier. He lowered his head to bite my collarbone until the taste of blood spread between his lips. When I woke again, I found myself in a different place. A layer of white gauze covered my eyes, blurring the too bright daylight. But I didn't close my eyes, greedily capturing this bit of light. Someone was speaking, a very familiar voice. "Your Highness, forgive my directness, but you cannot continue giving her that medicine." The person paused, then continued. "Sister is weak, she cannot take it. If this continues, I fear she will become mentally impaired." Xun gave a mocking laugh. "Being stupid would be good. Then she won't have any other thoughts and can only stay by my side forever." The person continued persuading. "If your Highness truly thought that way, you wouldn't have called for Imperial Doctor to examine her." Xun fell silent. He lifted the curtain and entered, his cold fingers touching my jaw. "Do you want to be locked up again?" Xun asked. I shuddered. Xun suddenly laughed lightly, his meaning unclear. For several days after that, he did not appear. Without Xun around, I still lived in fear. At night when I slept, I always worried that when I opened my eyes again, I would return to that deathly silent darkness. The cold, the silence. All fearful imaginings would pounce and tear at my soul the moment the door closed. Only endless suffering remained, as rationality gradually eroded away. In my dreams, that hand caressed my ankle again, bringing the chill of the night. I jolted awake, but kicked something soft. A cry of pain came from the floor. As moonlight spilled through the window lattice, that small figure gradually became clear. She sat fallen on the ground, staring at me blankly with hurt shimmering in her eyes. "You really don't like me, just like they said?" Cece asked me, her voice uncertain. I looked at the girl on the floor. These days, she seemed to have grown a bit. She was my daughter, how could I not like her? I remembered the night I gave birth to her, when pain that felt like it would tear my whole body apart came crashing in waves. Until the baby's cries accompanied the dawn, announcing the end of this torture. Xun brought Cece for me to see. She was so tiny then, couldn't even open her eyes. Fragile, innocent, unknowing, my daughter connected to me by blood. Having this child was not something I had a choice in. And being born to me was not something she had a choice in either. So I always wanted to be good to her, even better. She was taken to be raised by Princess Xun after her 100th day. So I especially treasured the time I spent with her, teaching her everything I knew, accompanying her, making up for things in my own way. After a brief silence, Cece's eyes reddened. "You think I like you that much?" She puffed up her cheeks, tears welling in her eyes. "I hate you." Back then when I just punished a servant, you made me take punishment too. I hate how you made those maids join us when teaching me to read. I hate those weird stories you told me. All that nonsense about humans evolving from apes, the solar system, the Little Mermaid. It's all gibberish, I couldn't understand and I didn't want to hear any of it. So that's what she thought. Tears streaked Cece's face as she sobbed and shouted at me. No wonder everyone says you're crazy. Why do I have to have someone like you as my mother? I clutched the blanket corner, seemingly frozen in place. I had forced my own will upon this child, thinking I was doing good by her, without regard for her thoughts or this world's views. Cece continued staring straight at me, her voice choked with tears. Why won't you say anything? My throat constricted as helplessness swept through my entire body. My lips moved, but in the end only 3 words came out. I'm sorry. After speaking, I realized no sound had actually come out at all. When Cece still heard no response, she finally turned away, messily wiping away tears with her sleeve as she got up from the floor and ran out the door without looking back. I seem to be sick. Whether it's warm sunshine outside or stormy weather. I feel like I'm trapped in ice, unable to react to anything. The royal physician summoned by Xun said it was due to excessive medication that damaged my mind. Hearing this, Xun's eyes darkened, looking at me with a complex expression. After a long while, he instructed, "Take good care of her." Then he hurriedly left again. The maids taking care of me were replaced with new faces. They didn't talk to me, and except for necessary daily interactions, they kept their distance. In the afternoon, as usual, the maid took me to the courtyard to bask in the sun. The sunlight was gentle, it should feel warm on the body. I sat in the chair, staring blankly into space. Su Wenba came at some point and stood silently beside me. When he got tired of standing, he casually sat on the ground, not minding that his white clothes got dirty from the soil. Sister, you used to be really annoying before, fearless of everything, living so happily every day. As if everything in the world was just a game to you. Su Wenba looked up at me, his voice somewhat tired. So now, isn't it great? You'll never look at me again with those eyes that float above the mortal world. I moved my eyeballs slightly, my eyes reflecting the dancing dust in the sunlight. The next day, Princess Xun actually came to visit me. She still maintained her exquisite makeup and proper demeanor. Cece hasn't been eating well these days, she's listless and often hides away to cry. Princess Xun asked directly, I know she went to see you, what did you say to her? I lowered my eyes in silence. Princess Xun stared at me steadily. After a while, her lips pursed slightly. Have you really become foolish? After that, she repeatedly invited me to her place for tea and conversation. Though it was always her talking while I listened. Sometimes at the corner of the pavilion or behind the courtyard wall. A glimpse of clothing could be seen, quickly slipping away when discovered. Princess Xun laughed softly, this child is more fortunate than our prince. I was stunned. Princess Xun began recounting the past. When he was born, his mother died from hemorrhage. His Majesty disliked him for causing his mother's death. So everyone in the palace bullied him, only his eldest brother and I protected him. When he was 12, we gave him a puppy. One night the dog drowned in the pond, and he just sat by the water holding the dead puppy, lost in thought. I went to comfort him, told him to join the army. It was a bloody path, but also a path to survival. He did very well later, becoming the undefeated general of the nation. Princess Xun lowered her eyelashes and sighed softly. So I never understood why he came to hate me. The wind passed through the corridor but couldn't disperse the room's loneliness. Princess Xun placed her hand on mine, speaking sincerely. When you first came to the mansion, you were focused on escaping, even begging me for help. But I couldn't go against His Highness's wishes. He's not one to cherish old relationships, I'm sorry. I let her hold my hand without resistance. Princess Xun bit her lip, her beautiful features relaxing. Another day passed. Princess Xun was going to the mountain temple to pray for blessings, and asked if I wanted to go with her. I remained dazed and unresponsive as usual. Princess Xun smiled and placed a veiled hat on my head, saying gently, It's windy outside, this will be better. Surrounded by servants, we got into the carriage. As the wheels turned, there were sounds of horses neighing and armor clashing outside. Yen Sun asked, "Where are you going?" Princess Sun replied from outside. "War is coming, I'm going to the temple to pray for your highness." After hearing this, there was silence outside for a while. Yen Sun said in a low voice, "Come back early." The journey up the mountain was uneventful. Princess Sun's gaze kept falling on me intermittently, her mind seemingly unsettled. In the temple, the Buddha statues gazed down with compassionate eyes at all living beings. Princess Sun and I knelt on meditation cushions. She pressed her palms together in sincere prayer. After a long while, she let out a deep breath. "I've been here twice before. The first time was to pray for marriage." Princess Sun looked up, her lips curling in mockery. "I had finished embroidering my wedding dress, but ended up marrying someone I didn't love." I turned to look at her. Now, she had shed her mask of virtue and propriety, finally showing normal human emotions like resentment and discontent. "The second time." Princess Sun paused, then sneered, "Do you know what I prayed for?" She leaned forward, her lips by my ear. "I prayed for Yen Sun's death." My eyelashes trembled. "We almost succeeded, he was about to die in Green Pear Village." Princess Sun could no longer contain her hatred, her voice dripping with years of accumulated venom. "Who knew you would save that bastard?" I instinctively backed away, nearly knocking over the crystal lamp on the altar. "Heh, talking about this now doesn't matter anymore." Princess Sun regained her composure. "I brought you here today to kill him again. I will send you to the first prince, who will use you as bait to ambush Yen Sun." The first prince feared a brother with illustrious military achievements. Princess Sun hated a husband she didn't choose. So they joined forces to eliminate Yen Sun by any means necessary. But I looked at Princess Sun in confusion. "Why choose me?" She just smiled calmly. "Yen Sun cares about you deeply. You've repeatedly angered him, even tried to kill him. Yet he couldn't bring himself to execute you. Someone like him, actually falling in love." With that said, Princess Sun fell silent, just quietly waiting. The candles burned lower and lower as we stayed there longer and longer. Princess Sun anxiously clutched her prayer beads. Her servant hurried in with a grave expression. "The first prince didn't send anyone." After a long moment, Princess Sun closed her eyes briefly and said, "Let's return." "What about her?" The servant frowned. Princess Sun glanced at me and said softly, "Take her back too. She's just a fool anyway. Yen Sun will go mad when he can't find her." On the return journey, Princess Sun closed her eyes to rest, seemingly exhausted. Suddenly the clash of weapons rang out, followed by the sound of blades piercing flesh and guards falling with muffled groans. Princess Sun lifted the curtain to look. A group of men in black were fighting with her guards. "They're targeting the princess." The well-trained driver turned the carriage around, with two mounted guards protecting either side as they fled. The mountain path grew increasingly treacherous, items rattling chaotically inside the carriage. Princess Sun's face was pale as she struggled to stay upright. I quickly moved to remove her cloak and put it on myself. Princess Sun frowned. "What are you doing?" "I'll draw the pursuers away." My voice was rough as sandpaper from long disuse. Princess Sun's eyes widened in disbelief. Then, I leaned close to Princess Sun, making sure each word reached her ears clearly. 30 kilometers outside the capital, at the city's bank. Prepare identity papers and travel documents for me there. If I survive, don't tell anyone my whereabouts. If I die... I gave Princess Sun a deep look. "Take good care of Cece." I put on the hood and lifted the curtain to exit. Seeing this, a guard slowed to let me mount his horse. I gripped the reins tightly and galloped down a side path. Hooves crushed the sunset-lit ground as the wind whipped past. The pursuers gave chase relentlessly. But my gaze ahead remained determined. The truth is, I was never truly numb. I repeatedly forced myself to hold my hand over fire, telling myself not to forget the pain. I had to escape. That betrayal and hurt would not destroy me. I remembered my name. I am Lin Yao Yao. My mother named me Yao Yao, hoping I would be like bamboo growing in the forest. Prosperous and evergreen, never withering despite autumn and winter's harsh frost. Racing onwards, I guided the horse into a dense forest. From my time with Yen Sun, I had seen maps of the area outside the capital. I vaguely recalled there was a cliff at the end of this path. My mind grew increasingly clear as I stared ahead, calculating the distance to the cliff. Then I pulled out my hairpin and stabbed it into the horse's flank while protecting my head and neck as I rolled down a gentle slope into thick grass. The horse screamed and charged forward, plunging into the vast river below. After getting the household registration documents, I hurriedly left City S, taking a boat south to get as far away from the capital as possible. I smeared herbal juice on my face to make my skin darken yellow, obscuring my features. The world was in chaos. Along the way, I saw people selling their children just for a bag of grain, only to have it seized by officials in the name of taxes. The piles of white bones and pots by the fields were particularly striking. I had to be extremely careful, avoiding everyone I met on the road. Finally, I settled in a small city near the south where things were relatively stable. Since a woman alone would seem strange, I used my literacy and knowledge of prescriptions to work as an assistant at a medical clinic. The doctor was a kind elderly man surnamed Bai. I remained quiet and refused contact with others. Dr. Bai accepted me anyway, never asking about my background, though his gaze held a barely perceptible sympathy. Common folk came and went at the clinic entrance, chatting and laughing. There was talk that Country L to the south had troops at the border, and war was imminent. They weren't worried, saying our city Y is too remote, the fighting won't reach here. I rested my chin on my hand, quietly sketching Chu Lang's features. He was only 19 when he arrived. I wondered what he looked like now. Those times of skipping class, playing games, and teasing each other seemed so distant now. If I found him, how would I bring him back home? Thinking of migration, my hand suddenly trembled, causing ink to blur the clear, smiling eyes of the youth on the waste paper. The Country L Army's capture of the city came suddenly. With insufficient defenses and no warning, City Y fell without even time to resist. The civilians stayed behind closed doors, anxious and afraid. The Country L Army was brutal, burning and pillaging everywhere they went, often leaving only empty cities. Dr. Bai closed the clinic too, stroking his beard and sighing heavily with a grave expression. I knew he was actually hiding several injured city guards in the back courtyard. When the Country L Army searched house by house, Dr. Bai knew he couldn't hide them anymore. He went out, offering the clinic's medicines and his years of savings to the Country L people with a placating smile. The Country L soldiers laughed as they took everything, then left. The next day, they came to search again. Seeing Dr. Bai had nothing left to give, they stormed the clinic and took everyone they found, including the injured guards, to gather in the city center. I kept my head down and obediently followed the Country L soldiers. My heart sank. There was an absurd sense of being toyed with by fate. How unlucky, Lin Yao Yao. Bonfires were lit in the city center as I was tied up with the other captives. Country L soldiers held weapons, their cold gleam reflecting in everyone's eyes as some captives began to cry. I lowered my head further, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible in the crowd. The flames danced in the wind. A horse's neigh cut through the ink-black night. The general in crimson robes and silver armor dismounted smoothly, his gaze coldly sweeping over the captives on the ground. "General, how should we handle these captives?" an attendant respectfully asked. I secretly raised my eyes to look at the general. The night wind was cold as a young voice devoid of emotion responded, "Kill them." I blinked my dry eyes as the firelight illuminated the general's profile. A high-bridge nose, gaunt jaw, and a scar under his eye. There should have been a tear mole there. The owner of that tear mole used to love raising his eyebrows when he smiled, making him look rather impish. So this was what Chu Langze looked like grown up. The soldiers, having received their orders, approached the captives with swords, considering where to start. The captives began wailing and struggling, kneeling to beg for mercy. As the bloodied swords drew closer, the metallic stench of blood was nauseating. I slowly stood up, looking at the general's back as he sat there, casually wiping his long sword. Chu Langze. My voice was drowned out by the screams and wails, but fell like a thunderbolt in his ears. He immediately turned around, his gaze cutting through the bloody night toward me. Some soldiers noticed, 2 or 3 surrounding me, preparing to deal with me. "Release her," the general's tone suddenly rose as he barked the command. He hurried toward me, his crimson robe hem lifted by the night wind. The The soldiers quickly stopped and stepped back, standing aside with bated breath. All the clamor faded away, leaving what seemed like just the two of us under the night sky. I looked at Chu Langzhe as he silently gazed back at me. Across the vast years, this was how we reunited. For some reason, though, I'd finally found the person I'd been searching for. My eyes were too dry to shed a single tear. Chu Langzhe remained frozen for a long while before managing to say, "Yao Yao, long time no see." But I saw clearly how he hastily hid his hands behind his back, his movements panicked. Because they were covered in sticky blood he hadn't had time to wash off. Chu Langzhe issued another order for the army to camp outside the city, without harming any civilians. He smiled and explained to me, "I thought they were capturing rebels in the city, that's why." Chu Langzhe didn't finish his sentence, complex emotions surging in his eyes. I let out a soft sigh, not pursuing the matter further. In the days that followed, Chu Langzhe kept me by his side, never letting me out of his sight. He never asked why I would wake up from nightmares. And I never asked why he changed his name or where the many scars on his body came from. We tacitly agreed to never mention what happened after coming to this world. Carefully observing who each other had become. Country L was wealthy and militarily strong, fully prepared for this war. Chu Langzhe had a strong reputation in the army, many called him young General Fu. I sat by the riverbank watching Chu Langzhe feed grass to horses, unconsciously wrapping flower branches around the sword in my arms. A group of people rushed past, teasing loudly, "Young General Fu is getting married." Chu Langzhe smiled helplessly at me, seeing that I spent most of my days alone and silent. He arranged something for me to do, teaching a group of young people how to read. I wanted to refuse, but Chu Langzhe took me to the mess hall. "Yao Yao, look, these soldiers are really just 12 or 13 years old, still children." Chu Langzhe looked at me, his eyes gentle. "I try to arrange them in logistics positions, so that when the war is over, they can go home and have a new life. Yao Yao, please help them." Going home, what a beautiful wish. I nodded and agreed. I occupied a spot in the army camp, and those children would come find me during their free time. Paper and writing materials were scarce here, so I used tree branches to write characters in the yellow earth to teach them. Heaven and earth, vast and profound, the universe born from chaos. Heaven is dark blue, earth is yellow, the universe formed from a state of primordial chaos. Heaven creates all things, earth nurtures them. Humans in this world are the smallest, yet also the greatest. Pairs of earnest eyes shone with the light of seeking knowledge as they recited. Winter comes and summer goes, autumn harvests and winter stores. These children learned slowly, but never gave up. Even when they came straight from exhausting army duties, they wouldn't rest but would rush over to find me. They would bow to me together, their movements learned from who knows where. All strange and different, but their voices synchronized as if rehearsed many times. "Thank you, Teacher Lin." I couldn't help but smile, the dark world brightening for a moment. The war between Country L and Country M continued. Chu Langzhe led the army capturing cities northward until they encountered Yen Sun's forces. The two armies faced off, neither daring to advance rashly. When I heard the opposing commander was Yen Sun, my fingers trembled, suddenly spilling the tea I was holding. Chu Langzhe, who was analyzing battle formations on the sand table, looked over at me with concern. I quickly regained composure, set aside the teacup, and began preparing tomorrow's lesson. Chu Lang's deputy rushed in excitedly, reporting, "General, guess who we captured? The daughter of that damn Prince Xun. I heard she's his only child. What luck that we ran into her." I looked up in shock. Soon after, several soldiers brought in a little girl. Her hands and feet were bound, and she watched her surroundings warily like a small animal. Naturally, she saw me. She stared for a long while, her eyes widening, choking sounds coming from her throat before breaking into devastated crying. I hurriedly crouched down, using my sleeve to wipe her tears. Chu Langzhe raised his hand to dismiss his subordinates. I slowly looked up at him and said, "Don't hurt her." Chu Langzhe stood in place, watching me hold and comfort the girl. His lips moved slightly, as if making some kind of decision. And for the first time he asked me, why? The illusion of our warm reunion would eventually be torn apart. Those cruel and unbearable truths were something Chu Langzhe and I would have to face sooner or later. I said, because she is my daughter. The river carried the moonlight, flowing slowly at night. Chu Langze and I sat by the riverbank. Just like when we used to climb mountains all night as teenagers. When tired, we would sit side by side to rest. He listened to me talk about many things. From my first year after arriving in this world, until now, the 9th year. Lin Yao Yao, when did you become so foolish? Chu Lang's voice was hoarse. Why aren't you going to school, living your own life? Why did you come looking for me instead? Hearing him call my full name, I lowered my eyes and smiled. Long ago, we would playfully call each other's full names. I would throw pillows at Chu Langze. He would easily dodge them, then make funny faces at me. Now, I turned to look at Chu Langze. Tears slid down the scar at the corner of his eye, then disappeared into the soil. Fate is truly unpredictable. Who knew that someone who used to be so cheerful would now cry for me? Lin Yao Yao, I will kill that beast, Chu Langze said. I shrugged my shoulders and replied with a smile. You should just teach me martial arts instead. I'll deal with my enemy myself. By the way, migration is still buried underneath Prince Xun's mansion. We need to find a way to get it, then go home together. Hearing this, Chu Lang's tears flowed even more heavily. Then what about you? How did you become young General Fu? Chu Langze took a deep breath, his voice very soft. Me, when I first arrived here, because I looked too similar to Fu Chen. That young General Fu, I was forced to be his substitute. Later Fu Chen was determined to roam the world of martial arts and become a wandering hero. So he cut off the mole under my eye, making me completely replace him. He covered his face and wept. At that time I thought no one would come save me. That I had been completely abandoned, so I accepted becoming Fu Chen. The Fu family only needed one young general, they didn't care who that person was. Also, I've killed many people. At first I would vomit, but later I got used to it. Lin Yao Yao, the person you paid such a high price to save has become a numb executioner. I leaned forward and gave Chu Langze a hug, gently stroking his back. It's okay, you shouldn't have to bear all these sins alone. In a world where you must kill first or be killed. The problem lies not with those who wield the blade, but with the world itself. I came here for you, no matter what you've become, I will take you home. The war between Country L and Country M dragged on longer and longer. I was still teaching those children to read in the military camp. After class, they gathered around me chirping, asking who performed the best. As I smiled and bent down to reward them with candy, I felt someone watching me from afar. I looked over instinctively. I waved at Cece over there, gesturing her to come over. But Cece stubbornly turned away and quickly ran off. These days, she often stayed within my sight but never wanted to talk to me. Was she still angry with me? I shook my head, trying not to think too much about it. One day, the characters I had written on the ground were suddenly wrinkled by the wind. The little boy in charge of the kitchen fire instinctively cupped his hands to block the wind. But when he stood up again, he fell backwards. I rushed forward to check on him. But I found that the boy's arms were covered in dense red rashes. An ominous guess emerged in my mind. Was it the plague? I hurried to find Chu Langze to see if there was a solution. But before long, more and more people in the army fell ill. Some even died. Chu Langze could only order cremation. The tents were lit up all night, but they couldn't find a solution. At this time, Country M suddenly sent an envoy, saying they wanted peace talks. The envoy's first words were to see Cece. However, when I appeared with Cece, the envoy's gaze remained fixed on me. Sister. Su Wenba's expression was dazed, his eyes filled with mixed joy and sorrow. You're not dead, that's wonderful, you're not dead. Chu Langze immediately stood up, drawing his sword and holding it to Su Wenba's neck. The peace talks are important. I walked to Chu Lang's side and patted his shoulder. Su Wenba gave me a deep look. Then he explained his purpose. The Country M army had a good remedy for the plague. That could help the Country L army in their urgent need. In exchange, the Country L army had to return Cece unharmed. Meanwhile, the main generals from both sides would meet at Green Mountain for peace talks. After discussing with his subordinates, Chu Langze agreed. When Su Wenba left, despite the weapon at his neck, he walked straight up to me and said, "Sister, you must come on the day of the peace talks, I have a gift for you." I gave him a cold glance. Su Wenba smiled to himself, then turned and left. After much thought, I still decided to accompany Chu Langzhe to Green Mountain. I was worried about Chu Langzhe. He agreed readily. After all, we were the closest people to each other in this world. We couldn't abandon or leave each other. The day of the peace talks was cloudy, with pale clouds covering Green Mountain. There was a clearing at the top of the mountain, where a platform had been set up with tables arranged on both sides. I sat beside Chu Langzhe, waiting with him for the country army's people. Cece hung her head, occasionally glancing at me. "You'll be sent back soon, don't run around anymore, be obedient," I said to Cece. Cece said in a muffled voice, "You used to tell me that if children express their reasons for not wanting to do something, they can disobey." The words I was about to say got stuck in my throat, my heart feeling complicated. Cece reached out, carefully grabbing the hem of my clothes. "Can I not go back to father? I want to stay with you." I sighed. "If you stay with me, I won't be able to take good care of you, I will eventually have to go home." Chu Langzhe squeezed my hand in comfort. Cece heard the rejection in my words and crawled under the table, curling up into a ball. I shook my head. When I saw that Yen Sun was sent by the Yen army for peace talks, I wasn't surprised. Probably because Su Wenba had informed him, Yen Sun wasn't surprised to see me either. He wore black clothes that should have fit well but now looked somewhat loose. His eyes were gloomy, and his whole being emanated an eerie aura. Su Wenba followed closely behind, and as he passed by me, he tossed me a pouch. I frowned in confusion. Su Wenba glanced sideways and said softly, "Sister, I lied. Actually, I never disliked how you were before. I was just selfishly trying to keep you here. In this world, who isn't selfish?" I felt like laughing coldly upon hearing this. During the meeting, Yen Sun poured and drank by himself, his eyes unabashedly looking at Chu Langzhe and me from above his cup's rim. I tried hard to adjust my breathing, not wanting to show the fear that seemed carved into my bones. Chu Langzhe returned the cold stare, his hand pressing down on his sword, knuckles white from the force. Yen Sun sneered slightly, shifting his gaze to the distant horizon. "Over there." I turned to look at the southern mountains, where the country army was stationed, now billowing with thick smoke. Yen Sun beckoned to me. "Canary, come here." "Get lost." My eyes blazed with anger. "My name is Lin Yao Yao." Yen Sun's men drew weapons from various hiding places and charged toward Country L's peace delegation. Chu Langzhe drew his sword and dealt with two men who came for me. In an instant, this place became a new battlefield. Yen Sun spoke directly, "Your court has already abandoned Fu Chen's army. Surrender now, and I'll spare your lives." What nonsense. Chu Langzhe held his sword in front, protecting me behind him. I curved my lips into a smile, standing shoulder to shoulder with Chu Langzhe. Before, when facing troubles, there was always so much cowardice. It turns out, it was because I lacked a companion who would advance and retreat together, live and die together. Yen Sun's eyes darkened. The confident expression on his face completely vanished, replaced by cold fury. The men coming for me were trying to capture me and take me to Yen Sun, so they were restrained. But those attacking Chu Langzhe showed no mercy in their killing moves. Despite how well Chu Langzhe had trained in martial arts over these years, he couldn't fight so many people and was cut twice in succession. He swallowed his cry of pain and continued fighting, watching the blood spreading under Chu Lang's clothes. I picked up a sword from the ground and started swinging it wildly without technique. The clash of weapons sent painful vibrations through my wrist bones. I felt no fear and gripped the sword tighter. At worst, I would die here with honor. Not far away, Su Wenba stood with his hands in his sleeves, quietly watching the chaos. He was too quiet, so his earlier words surfaced in my mind. Following my intuition, I opened the pouch Su Wenba gave me. Inside was a gray pearl. "Sister, returning this to you." Su Wenba's lips moved, silently forming these words. Without hesitation, I activated migration, and as the world shifted, A gate of light gradually formed. The fighting people all knelt down, crying out that it was a divine miracle. Chu Langzhe and I exchanged smiles. We can finally go home. We ran together toward the light gate. However, Chu Lang's figure disappeared. I fell through empty space, completely rejected by migration. How could this be? I collapsed to the ground in confusion. A cold mechanical voice sounded in the air. According to Temporal Law Article 13, no one may produce offspring with native residents of different timelines. Violation detected. Please eliminate anomaly. Looking at the pearl in my hand, which had returned to its unremarkable appearance, I laughed through my tears. At the end of that day, it was Cece who tugged at my sleeve, awakening me from my daze. Yen Sun was delighted to see that I hadn't left with Chu Langzhe. He said many things to me. Before, I used many despicable means to keep you here. No one taught me how to treat someone precious. It won't happen again. I won't treat you that way anymore. I'll make you my wife. Didn't you always want to keep Cece by your side? This way we can be a family, accompanying each other for a long time. Looking at those eyes that once brought me pain but were now filled with hope and joy, I slapped him across the face. Try using all your despicable methods on yourself first, then come talk to me. Just because no one told you, no one taught you. You think you can destroy my dignity and make me crawl at your feet begging for life? Yen Sun, if I really agreed to be with you, that would truly be degrading myself. I looked at Yen Sun and said word by word, I will never love someone who forces me. Never. After hearing these words, Yen Sun seemed greatly shocked and didn't come see me for a long time. Well, he was convinced I couldn't leave anyway. Perhaps he hoped time would wash away the hatred. That might have been an excellent strategy. But I would never forget. I fell into another round of despair. I could only clutch migration and hide in my room, thinking about what to do next. Sometimes Cece would come find me, slip under the covers, and sleep peacefully through the night. She didn't say much else. She was very good at hiding her feelings. On Cece's birthday, she played wildly outside during the day, then crawled into my arms at night, finding a comfortable position to lie down. Her breathing was very light, as if afraid of disturbing me. Then, she began to speak. That day I heard it, what that strange pearl said to you. Cece's voice was muffled, my existence is a mistake. I instinctively stroked her hair, not a mistake. You're the most innocent one. Innocent? A sadness beyond her years appeared on Cece's face. Then why am I doing things that hurt you, just like father? My eyes began to sting. Cece turned her head and called out to me, Mummy. You said that's what children call their mothers in your hometown. Cece suddenly coughed violently. She took a deep breath. I used to throw tantrums, didn't want to call you that. Is it too late now? I noticed something was wrong and held Cece's face to look closer. She was still smiling, with blood foam at the corner of her lips. Cece, I'll take you to see the doctor. I panicked and was about to carry her off the bed. But Cece held me back. The poison I stole is powerful. No doctor can cure it. Mummy, just stay here and listen to me talk one last time. I'm still very brave, right? I realized what Cece had done, and tears burst forth. If her existence is a mistake, then erase the mistake. I'm sorry. Mommy, those stories you told, I actually really liked them. You're amazing, you know things no one else understands, and you shared them with me. That's our secret. Cece's voice grew weaker and more broken. Go home. You'll have new children. They'll be more obedient than me, more sensible. They won't make you sad. They'll be children you look forward to having. She gave an innocent smile. Mummy, I haven't heard the end of the Little Mermaid story yet. Can you tell it to me? I wept uncontrollably. At the end of the story, the Little Mermaid stabbed her heart with a dagger. She jumped into the sea. Her body turned to foam. Her soul went to heaven. As the last words fell, Cece quietly closed her eyes. Her sleeping face was peaceful, like returning to the moment of birth. Migration successfully activated, projecting a gate of light. I roughly wiped away my tears and walked towards it step by step. In my peripheral vision, Sun ran towards me barefoot with disheveled hair, like a madman. His eyes bulged. "Don't go, don't leave, stop." I completely ignored him as he knelt begging, and walked through the light gate without looking back. "All right, Yao Yao, this is our final counseling session. I'm glad to have witnessed your recovery." I thanked the doctor and got up to leave. When I walked out of the mental hospital doors, someone was already waiting there on a bicycle. He raised his eyebrows and smiled at me. "Lin Yao Yao, long time no see.